Hello, my name is Russ Balzer, and I'm Technical Director with WorldAutoSteel, an international consortium of steelmakers that produce most of the steel for the global automotive market. Today, I'd like to talk about automotive greenhouse gas emissions, how they're currently addressed, some of the issues with current emissions reduction strategies, and how we might do it more effectively. As I'm sure everyone knows, automotive emissions regulations are getting stricter all over the world in an effort to address transportation greenhouse gas emissions, which do remain a major unresolved issue. These increasingly stringent regulations are intended to help the transportation sector play its part in reaching very specific emissions reductions targets. At World Auto Steel, we believe that the current approach to automotive emissions regulations is not an effective way to do this. The problem is that current regulations only look at tailpipe emissions, emissions produced while the vehicle is being driven. Other significant sources of greenhouse gas emissions like fuel production, vehicle production, and treatment of the vehicle at the end of its useful life are ignored. One of the effects of this approach is to force automakers to adopt the vehicle lightweighting strategies that can lead to unintended consequences for the overall vehicle emissions. The reason for this outcome has to do with the emissions from the production of the materials from which the vehicle is made. This chart shows the average primary production emissions for the major automotive structural materials. The values on the left are the greenhouse gas emissions per kilogram of finished material. The values on the right are estimated masses of an equivalent component made from each of these materials. This value reflects the average mass savings that you can expect from using each material. By simply multiplying these two numbers together, we can calculate the greenhouse gas emissions that result from the production of each part. As you can see, for the lower density, more energy intensive materials, the mass savings are not enough to offset the increased greenhouse gas emissions. This can lead to the unintended consequence of higher emissions overall. This is, of course, not the whole story. Reducing the mass of the vehicle does decrease the fuel consumption, which reduces the tailpipe emissions. So doesn't this reduction offset the increased production emissions from the materials? Unfortunately, the answer is sometimes, but not always. By focusing on the tailpipe, current emissions policies only account for the savings during the vehicle use. In the best case, the increase in production emissions is less than the use phase savings, so you do get some savings overall. In some cases, the increase in the production emissions is about the same as the use phase savings, resulting in no overall improvement. And in many cases, we know that the increased production emissions outweigh the savings in the use phase, resulting in the unintended consequence of higher overall emissions, the exact opposite of what the regulations are trying to do. Since current emissions policies do not account for the production emissions at all, they don't tell us which of these cases we're in. So we can't know if they are bringing us closer to our reduction targets or farther away. One thing we do know is that all of these cases come at a higher cost to the automaker and ultimately higher cost to the consumers. So how do we fix this problem? We believe that an important part of the answer is life cycle assessment. Life cycle assessment is an environmental accounting method that looks at emissions across a product's entire life cycle, from the production of the product, including the mining and production of the materials from which the product is made, through the use and including the recycling or disposal at the end of the product's life. It's only by taking this life cycle perspective that we can really understand a vehicle's environmental impact and know whether or not our emissions reduction strategies are effective. At World Auto Steel, we work with researchers, policymakers, and others in the automotive value chain to develop tools, educate stakeholders, and advocate for the inclusion of a life cycle perspective in automotive emissions regulations. Much of our work is made freely available through our website at worldautosteel.org. For more information on life cycle assessment and how it can be applied in automotive emissions policies, feel free to contact us, or you can always find more information at worldautosteel.org. Thank you.